warm welcome to all of you who have joined us today for this exciting panel discussion. The topic for today, cultural diversity, a business imperative through the lens of a diverse workforce. So this is Sheetal Vedraj. I am one of the core team members of the D&I practice in India. And it gives me immense pleasure today to set the context for this webinar and also introduce our panelists and our moderator for today. I hope at least some of you got a chance to watch Prashant's video bite yesterday, which was posted on Yammer. So he did mention about how cultural diversity is not new for Expleo. So yeah, we have people across we have 30 countries, 103 nationalities, and we have increased our women workforce from 23% to 28% for Expleo group. And in India, we currently stand at 33%. So these are big numbers, but we still have a long way to go, lots to do, and there's always a scope for improvement. So that's why we have leaders from diverse industries today. And you may want to note that they're all from different corners of the world as of today. And they've taken time out of their busy schedules to share their experience, their observations, and the approach to building a diverse organization. Without any delay, let me introduce our panelists, and I extend the warmest welcome to Mr. Shekhar Bhandari. So he's the president, Global Transaction Banking at Kotak Mahindra Bank, and Ms. Priya Tandon. So she is the head of operational excellence at Tietoevry Care. And we have Ms. Uzma Rushdi. Currently, she is facing some technical issues. We're trying to get that sorted. She is a financial services professional with experience in strategy, operations, customer experience, and has still very recently been working with HDFC Life. And we also have two of our senior executives who have joined us today, Ms. Anupama Hatti. She's the country head for digital delivery, Expleo UK. And we have Mr. Rajesh Kumaraswamy, who most of you will know here. So he's the head of human resources, Expleo India. And to make the next 45 minutes informative and engaging, we have none other than Ms. Zoe Schnebelen. So again, most of you know her. So she is our Chief Human Resources Officer, and she is our moderator for today. And before I ask Zoe to take over, Balaji and Prashant, any thoughts that you would like to share with the participants, please?
No, I think you mentioned about very clearly about what Prashant mentioned in this video bite. Unfortunately, I couldn't send one, but Prashant has covered for that. I don't really have anything else. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today, hearing from all the leaders on their perspective. This is a very important topic for us, and will set the tone for the next at least a decade or two in terms of how Expleo is going to grow within India and globally as well. And India, as we all know, is a very, very integral part for the global Expleo. Really looking forward to take the learnings from here.
Prashant?
Yeah, I think Balaji covered it. It's and that's what I know. Like I spoke in my video, that this is beyond the race, religion, region. This is actually it's your thought process. It's in your mind. And that's what we have to inculcate, because Expleo today we are in so many countries, and the number of colleagues we deal with or we communicate every day, they come with such a diverse background. So it's very important that we understand the importance of it. So yeah, that's it from my side.
Thanks, Balaji. Thanks, Prashant. This is where I pass the baton to you. Looking forward to a very engaging session.
Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you, everybody, and welcome to all of you again. And thank you for the introduction. And I'm fully aligned with Prashant and Balaji. This is very important for us to advocate diversity within the group in India and in every country where Expleo as a location. And as you mentioned, I think the panelists here just reflects a lot of diversity already. So I'm very happy for that. I would like to start this discussion on diversity to identify what is the definition for you of cultural diversity. It's one of the biggest strategic pillars for organization. So what does it mean when we talk about cultural diversity? And just share, each of you may have a different definition. So what would it mean for each of you? Who would like to start? Priya? Our guest first.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you very much. And thank you, Expleo, for actually inviting the external views also. It's a very good thought. A little bit of my background from a cultural diversity perspective also, being a head of operations for Tietoevry Care. I also look to go into every country, and myself is a cultural diversity classes that I conduct for people. And the major idea behind that is, first of all, the leader should speak about it themselves from their own eyes than just a theoretical definition of it. So for me, cultural diversity is actually coming from, is moving from, the paradigm of fairness and discrimination to learning and effectiveness paradigm. So where we used to take a call on cultural diversity and say, hey, everybody is equal and we will treat equally and do this, and this is an inclusive workplace, to really understanding that that paradigm is now shifted and it is actually going towards we are different, and that's the beauty of it, and how we can make this as a work type or a source for actually increasing the operational effectiveness of any company. So this is the paradigm shift, is what in my new definition of cultural diversity is. But then over to my colleagues over here.
Thank you, Priya. Shekhar, your opinion and your definition of cultural diversity.
I think, first of all, I think welcome all of you. It's a good morning, and it's a good morning across the globe, I call, with good weather across. I'm sitting in Mumbai with a very good weather. Bangalore is doing very well, and so is, I think, a large part of Europe. Culture is a way of being, while diversity is realizing that each person is different. The world is filled with different beliefs, religion, mother tongues, gender, age groups, and the ways of living. And we live and want to live happily in whatever, I think, areas we are in, or with the beliefs, religions, traditions, I think we are in. And it is our differences that I think that we can find beauty and innovation in a working environment. So to me, I think it is to bring all the people together. They work, they would create something remarkable by coming together with their differences, as well as the potential, I think, which they bring in together with the differences being harnessed. And to me, I think cultural diversity ensures that it's a workplace diversity and inclusion, I think, which are more than just words, but it is a way of working. To me at Kotak, I think it has always been at the forefront of attracting, motivating, and launching, I think, initiatives for culture and diversity. And I think I can set a few examples where I have Kotak Women Wonders and etc. I think, which are done, or there are financial benefits which are being there, or the way you promote, I think, people from different genres. So example, if there are specific areas where disabled people can come in and their biggest strengths can be utilized, and they become more effective than so-called as people with are across. So to me, culture is a way of being, and while diversity is realizing that each person is different.
Thank you. This is a very large answer, and we will have the opportunity to deep dive on some key highlights here, because I think you raised some very important level in the cultural diversity. From our team, Rajesh, may I ask you your definition about cultural diversity?
Sure. Good morning. Like Priya and Shekhar rightly mentioned, they've already covered the points that I wanted to mention. But I'd like to take a step back and share one of my history. So when I was employed with my previous company, the executive committee members had given a target to all the leaders, the business leaders and the HR, saying that you need to enhance your culture, Second was enhance and increase the diversity and inclusion. Obviously, I had to do a little bit of research and understand what are the means through which we can enhance culture, right? And when I typed in the word enhance culture in Google, I was surprised to see the response. It gave me two different perspectives. One is enhancing culture in what we call the management language, organization culture. Second thing was in the biological medical terms. Culture, what we call is a bacterial element which is present in the human body, which is responsible to keep our tissues and bones connected to each other, right? So it was a very good learning for me, how a culture in our human body connects the tissues and the bones together is so vital. Likewise, somebody rightly said, culture is something very important in an organization. If you don't have the right culture, then you won't be able to attract people, retain people, and you don't have the best of the people working with you. And very often when I speak to people, people talk about culture of diversity and inclusion. So I think both are seen as different terminology. I think diversity and inclusion should be seen as a complementary to each other. So unless you have the culture of having diversity, and if you don't have inclusion part of it, then it's meaningless. So without diversity, you may have a bunch of people who have same thoughts, but not effective team. On the other hand, without inclusion, means there's no diversity. So I think it's very important, how do we build a culture around diversity and inclusion without any prejudices of race, religion, caste, everything. And I feel it starts from home, not from office. Today, I'm trying to teach my son how not to be biased when he's going to school or talking to his girls in the class. So I think it starts from home and not from the offices, is my view. So thank you.
Thank you very much. So I discovered that cultural diversity and inclusion is the doctor of the company.
Absolutely.
To connect bones and tissues. Thank you very much for that. Actually, yes, we can see and we know that research proves that the cultural diversity really achieve a higher profitability in value creation in our companies. And sometimes also challenges comes with the adoption of this cultural diversity, because as you mentioned, this is very important, but how do you enhance it and how to develop it within our companies? So in your experience, what are the organizational challenges that we are facing today, and how have you been able to overcome them? May I ask Uzma to... Sorry, you're on mute.
Am I audible today?
Yeah.
Okay, great. First of all, good morning, everyone. I'm sorry for the slight technology snafu because of which I joined a little later. So Zoe, this point about what challenges we face when we embark on our diversity and inclusion journey, I think is a very interesting point, and it's great to be thinking of that as the journey starts itself, because the experience of organizations who have embarked on this journey, I think there are a few common patterns or challenges that they have encountered. And while there could be several and they could be very specific to the organization as well, a few common ones that I have observed and read about that I'd like to say. The first one, I think, is that being a cultural change, I think, as a lot of other folks have also already spoken about, it's something that needs to be done very gradually. I feel that appropriate pace at which it needs to be done is important for it to be accepted and to be embedded. It's really a marathon and not a sprint. Too many initiatives at the same time or too many different axes in which we tackle diversity, that could actually cause diversity fatigue in the organization. So it's important to pace ourselves. I think that is that's something that at the start of the journey we think through which axes are important to us and we plan accordingly. That will avoid some of the challenges associated with going too fast in a change of this magnitude. The other thing that I've seen some organizations who have embarked on this journey, the second point is that there is a cost to diversity initiative, right? Those costs could be in terms of spending more time and perhaps searching for the right candidate, or perhaps waiting for more time for decisions to emerge. I think consensus decision making or bringing all viewpoints into the table when they are diverse viewpoints, that requires a patience and a challenge for a decision-making team, which is perhaps sort of accustomed to many people having similar views. So that time, that efforts that it will take, or perhaps people with special challenges that we are bringing into the organization under the diverse category, what sort of workspace requirements we may have. So these are costs that are associated with the immediate, and these are costs are immediate and the benefits are long-term. So sometimes it's when the costs come in the way, then perhaps the sort of imagination of the future benefits sometimes can seem far away. So internalizing that cost, that there will be a cost, and baking that into our business model so that we don't get disoriented when we have to have those costs expended in this journey. That's, I think, another good place to think about as we start. And the third one, I think, is that there are existing people in the organization, perhaps star performers and people who have been very successful with the way things are currently. And there could be some resistance from the existing way things are done to such an initiative, which is very core and very deep and really challenges some of the things that are done. So, and I also feel that people who are in charge of diversity and inclusion initiatives are very passionate usually. So the thought that there could be a resistance to it is not something that, it could be a bit of a blind spot, I think. And it perhaps is a blind spot for me as well when I started thinking about these things some years back. But realizing that there will be resistance for change and thinking about how we can proactively plan for that resistance and sort of take that in our stride when it comes rather than be surprised with it. I think that could help make it a much more smoother journey for everyone.
Thank you. Very interesting. And so true. Anu, anything you would like to add on the?
Yeah, just a couple of points from my end. I think, as we all have already discussed, we've got different cultures, and different cultures bring in different ways of working. For example, in some cultures, hierarchy is very important, and people will only work respecting hierarchy. So if someone in a non-authoritative position mentions something, it may not get done. I think for things like this, bringing awareness to people and for people to understand that there could be things like this, I could be faced with challenges like this, is very important. I think awareness is very, very important. And the second thing I would like to mention is the language that we as leaders speak makes a very big difference. If we respect diversity, in our thoughts, in our actions, that'll get sort of carried on to the rest of the organization as well. People see and learn, and they will imbibe it when they see it from us. So those are 2 points from my end.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In terms of, so we understand your definition of the cultural diversity. We discussed and you raised the different challenges you may raise and how to overcome them. I would like to add a different dimension on this cultural diversity. What about the technology impact on this cultural diversity? Now that with our hybrid world, we have the technology, which is a non-negotiable item. How does it change the paradigm? What does it bring to our cultural diversity, and what it helps or not in terms of achieving our targets and objectives for that? May I ask Shekhar?
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. And what technology taught us in last 2.5 years? I think we've been asking for it, but thanks to COVID, it made us probably learn a bit more, understand a bit more, and drive the entire diversity thought, I think, significantly. Mobile, internet, connectivity, a few ecosystem things which happened, which got laid to ensure that I think the tech can play a very important role happened, and now I think it has brought the distances between people to nearly zero. and which means I think increased transparency, better insights, more knowledgeable people, and which also helps in promoting the organizational diversity. Yes, we stay connected with each other, and thanks to the technological advancements which happened. So a few things which was considered as a taboo, I guess, around 30 months back. It can be to do with data. Can you access systems at home? Can you operate confidential things from home? I guess those parts got solved by technology, facilitating and ensuring that the trust part goes up. It aided in hiring the talent, people working from their homes across locations rather than only being that respective city. Most diverse places, diverse needs, various requirements, I think, get met quite well. And you were able to, I guess, at least I can say for myself and a good amount of teams which were there, actually worked much harder, given the right technologies which allowed the companies to cast a wider net. And it was not limited to only companies. I guess, I think across businesses, people did realize that technology played a significant role in breaking down, I think, all the barriers which were there. HR teams will agree that the employee engagements, which were considered only physical earlier, I guess became much more. The knowledge, training, and the various things, I think, which were there. So when we say our new generation, I think they like probably screens much more. I think we got engaged with them much more, and it helped in achieving the organizational diversity significantly thanks to technology.
Thank you. So for you, technology has really been a plus. Priya, in your organization?
Yep. So Zoe, I will extend with Shekhar, but we'll go towards little more our diversity inclusion initiatives and how really technology has helped, and in my organization also. So in generally, in diversity and inclusion, when you talk about a technology, you can use the technology in right from talent acquisition to talent management to competency development to all sorts of areas when it comes on a particular workforce. But I will definitely say what Shekhar has said is one of the things that has happened is we have challenged our own self by saying, oh, I need to see a person in front of me to be able to select a person, and you are over analyzing certain things. There are many, and earlier also the companies, although had a very best intention when it comes on diversity inclusion, and if diversity inclusion leader goes and asks for technological R&D investment, nobody actually has, I mean, that comes at the end saying, hey, you know what, we will do it, but at our own pace. But with this pandemic thing happened and everything went hybrid, actually technology has got the R&D, the money has actually increased into it a lot. For example, when people are now sending the passive candidates the email, you are going through a tool like Expleo or something to make it gender neutral, and you are making it very inclusive. You are actually, this kind of tools actually can tell you whether you have a prejudice while you are writing certain job descriptions. So this really helps because it makes you aware on the job exactly. But then it comes down to the feedbacks. For example, when you gather the employee feedback, usually, and this is just very typical that whenever people used to get the feedback, they used to read the textual comment, they used to, first thing used to come in mind, not actually understanding the emotion in the feedback, but who said this? Who was this culprit who has said this kind of thing? And you tend to go towards the source than what has been said. But with the AI technology, which is probably in every company now, in my company, it is definitely there. All the textual comments are read through the AI. They are read through the people also. So there is an equal importance given, but read through the AI and actually given the feel of that particular feedback, saying, hey, how much of a well-being that people are thinking about, how much and how it is going. Is it going to the positive emotion or a negative emotion? Now we have to also understand that these algorithms are not fully trained, and it will get trained over the time because they are AI algorithms. But this particular change has been very natural during this last 3 years during the pandemic. So I really feel this is exactly the same thing we also do in our company. We not only do the AI evaluation, but also the evaluation or the textual comment. But because now that you have taken the emotion out of it, you are able to concentrate onto the richness of the feedback more than who said it. So I think that this actually brings down the prejudice. This is just few examples that I wanted to give. I mean, we can talk about the technology in a very large extent. There is a lot invested, like VR is invested. I have attended a class, not in my company, but some other company I was doing evaluation of. They have given me a VR class, and where I have gone into a virtual reality and actually dealt with the other diversity people and how I will do it than just answering a question on your CBT kind of a module. This really makes a lot of difference because it is actually able to understand what you're trying to do with the other person when you are tackling the problem. So I think these things are not far distance anymore because of this whole hybrid ways of working and remote working, and anybody can work on from any place kind of a scenario. This has increased a lot, and there's a lot of investment in a technology that has been done. I think it's enriching to see. I don't think a human touch will go because of it. I think that's always a question. Whenever when the taste automation has come, people have started saying, will this be replacing the taster? Of course not. They will do better job than they are doing today, the mundane job that they do. I think HR will do a better job, the leaders will do a better job, managers will do a better job if you have a technology in your hand. That was a long answer, but it's very passionate. I'm a technology person, so I take all the time. Zoe, over to you.
Yeah, we can hear that. So maybe to summarize what you said is this technology and the pandemic has been a catalyst in how to improve our diversity within the companies, because people had no choice to go through that. And maybe it would have taken more time, or 10 years, 10 years is something just to illustrate, but much more time without this pandemic things and the way it changed our behaviors behind. Rajesh, would you like to add anything? You're on mute.
Sorry, I think Priya covered it very well, and I agree to Shekhar as well. Today, I'm sure all of you will agree with me. We all can step out from our house without our purses, but we cannot step out without a mobile. That's technology. Okay, so without technology, I don't think we can even live very peacefully. So I think, and I give this credit to, again, the COVID also, because COVID also taught us a lot to rely on technology. And if you see most of the companies which are really into diversity and inclusion, they heavily rely on technology. They have various platforms that enables them to get a better insight in terms of how are they keeping a track of the hiring that's happening by the TA team. How is the managers, looking at the pay gap between the male and the female colleagues? How are we looking at, creating platform for our women colleagues to grow in the organization? Things like that, recognition, etc. So I think technology plays a lot of important role in terms of bringing in diversity within the organization. And a very important thing is, I'm a very fan of this group called the Employee Resource Group, which most of the companies have, implemented. And if you were to deploy an employee resource group where you want to bring in inclusiveness, the only way that you could do is through a tool. And without this technology in place, I don't think we would ever be able to achieve what we're looking at. So I think technology definitely would have made my life more difficult if I didn't have better insights, or if I didn't have the platforms through which I can get people connected together.
Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely. And so now it raised the questions. It raised the questions within our organization and within our companies. So we discussed, we said technology brings a lot, okay? We have to overcome some challenges, but who should drive this change within the company? Who should be the owner, and which function has a key role to play? Is it a specific function focus, or is it everybody's focus in the organization? Would we say it's only a C-suite focus, or human resources, or something else? I may ask Uzma? You're on mute again.
I don't learn, do I? So thank you for that question, Zoe. I think that culture and values are something which are very core to an organization. So the sponsor of such a massive cultural values related thing has to be the C-suite in my view. But while it can start with the C-suite, unlike say a 5-year strategy plan, this is something that cannot be the ownership only of the C-suite. I think the HR function has an extremely important role to play because they are the owners of a lot of the processes which go into helping the diversity and inclusion agenda, whether it is recruitment or it is a lot of data pertaining to pay or it is engagement surveys, etc. They are the owners of a lot of these processes which can continue to keep the momentum and continue to nudge the organization in the right direction. But I would say it doesn't even stop with HR because culture is something that every employee owns. And this is really something which has to be felt, and that belonging has to be created by the employees at the end of the day. No amount of processes or focus from the C-suite even will help the inclusion agenda. Diversity to some extent, yes, is something that is structural and that can be done through processes and policies, etc. But inclusion is something that is a feeling of belonging that those diverse employees feel when they are part of the organization. And for that, I think everyone, particularly those people who are in a position of authority, even a first level manager authority, etc., they are really the champions of change and making sure that people feel a difference. They feel that their voices are important. They are able to blossom and really sort of don't feel constrained to to behave in a particular way. They are able to bring their best selves to work, as we say these days. So it's really something which starts at the C-suite, but it's too big to sort of be constrained to a few parts of the organization or even few departments in the organization. That's what I think.
Thank you. And Rajesh, within Expleo and from your previous experience, what would you say in terms of the way it works in our company?
I first like to thank you and Rajesh Krishnamurthy, our CEO, and of course Prashant and Balaji for making our life easy to a major extent, because you are the brand ambassadors for Expleo and you are driving the need for the diversity and inclusion across all the regions. So I think that itself is the first step to have a great organization where we talk about diversity and inclusion. But I think it's just not the responsibility of the C-suite team or the HR and the leaders, but I think there are another 4 more people or 4 more groups who can contribute to this program. The first one, as I said, is Rajesh Krishnamurthy and Zoe, of course. And of course, HR. Now, why HR? Because HR is the team that would provide the framework, the platform, and is the team that will measure if you're going into the right direction. So HR definitely plays an important role. The third one is the people managers or the business leaders. They also play a very important role because it's very important. It's very important that our people managers understand how important is it to drive diversity and inclusion in the organization. We have some of awesome managers working with us, but there are some who are sitting with the preconceived note that women leaders or women colleagues may have their own challenges. Once they get married, they may not be interested. Once they have a child, they probably may not be able to give dedicated time. I think first of all the people managers should also have a change in the perception, or do a little bit of homework and see, is that a perceived thought or is that an actual fact? Which means you need to talk to your women colleagues and understand what kind of support they need, how can they help them grow within the organization. So that's one thing. One is change of the mindset, and then moving that extra mile to talking to our women colleagues and everybody. It's not only women colleagues. It could be anybody where we could help them to bring in gender diversity, right? That's the second one. Third, I think it's the major onus is on the women colleagues itself. By nature, I think women colleagues have been very shy in India. They don't tend to talk. They don't tend to be vocal. So I think it's also important for our women colleagues to be vocal and not wait for the mic to come to them. You need to grab the mic. You need to talk to your managers, talk about your aspirations, talk about how do you want to make things grow better in the organization. Likewise, they also need to talk to the family also and say, these are my ambitions. This is the kind of support that I need if I were to be successful in my career. So I think a lot of work is on the women colleagues also, how they talk to their managers, how they talk to their family, get the support and moving on. Fourth one is the change champion team or the diversity team. So I work very closely with Dipti, and we meet on a regular basis and see what are the things that we need to do to make sure that we are bringing in more diversity and inclusion in this organization. So it's not just about gender diversity. A month ago, we also had people who are physically challenged, right? So our diversity is just not narrowed to women colleagues. We are looking at it a broader term, right? And we had about 8 people who had physically challenges, right? So we're looking at diversity at a bigger definition. And then the last but the least is also for the employees. Employees will also have to be vocal and say, how do we make this organization as a better organization for people to feel, yes, we truly care for diversity and inclusion. One of the colleagues whom I spoke in Pune, she said, I'm carrying and, I have a challenge. I said, what's your challenge? She said, getting parking space. So we said, okay, why don't we look at, having a dedicated car parking space for women who are carrying? Our initiatives are like these are which we're working upon to make sure people feel that, yes, this is an organization just don't talk about diversity and inclusion, but truly means it. And they are taking every steps to ensure how we are making it as a great place to work when it comes to diversity and inclusion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so we have the ownership, we discussed the ownership, but how do we ensure and how do we make sure we are progressing? So how do we evaluate the success of the diversity within a company? This is a key question because we implement actions, we have these owners, and you both mentioned it's a shared ownership. It comes with inspiring leadership and with the empowerment of every single manager and employees, but we need to merge that. Anu, any idea in your opinion on how we would be able to measure and to check how do we progress?
Sure. Thank you for that question, Zoe. So there are probably multiple ways of doing it, right? So one of the things that I would see is conducting employee surveys to see how happy they are. It's not just diversity as a topic. In general, how happy they are. If we were being inclusive, the level of happiness or happiness index of the employee satisfaction would grow, definitely. That's probably a way of doing it. And the other one is to allow people to give us feedback. Not in form of survey, not when asked, but have a forum where they could give feedback at any point or suggestions at any point if they felt that there could be something that the organization could do to improve inclusion on a certain topic. Just like the example that Rajesh mentioned earlier about providing a dedicated parking space for women who are pregnant. There could be things like that. There could be someone who is physically challenged, who is differently abled, who is not able to walk from a distance from a car park into the office, or it could be that they're not able to climb the stairs up and down for whatever reason. So maybe getting them located in a location that is easier for them to work. So things like that. There could be suggestions from other people that would come out that would help us. So having a forum for people to provide those suggestions would probably be another way. And the other way is to probably bring in an external expert, like Priya was mentioning, that there's lots of things that are being done in her company. So maybe bringing in an external expert to do an assessment of what we have done, especially for imbibing the diversity and inclusive culture in the organization. So an independent, fresh pair of eyes assessment of what we are doing on a regular basis to see if what we're doing is working or not. That could be another way of doing it.
Yeah, thank you. And one key item I would like to highlight in what you say, there is no little things. Okay, I mean, everything has to be raised and shared because people have to feel confident they can share everything. Uzma, in your opinion, how would you say we can measure progress and improve in terms of cultural diversity?
So that's a very interesting question, I think, Zoe. I think measurement, setting up measurement frameworks and the right metrics at the start is extremely important for any initiative, really, because if the measurements are not well designed, then that could lead to effort being expended in the sort of not so helpful initiatives or activities sometimes. So when we are designing how we will measure the success of this activity, what I would imagine axis that we should look at is something which is medium term and some things which are longer term. Some things which are structural and some things which are behavioral. Behavioral ones, I think particularly what Anupama spoke about in terms of surveys and really capturing the voice of the employee. Those are very important to sense whether behavioral changes are happening. Structural changes and policy changes is something that can be done centrally as well. The other thing I think that I used to ask my HR team as well when I was in HDFC Life to work with, and I used to work with them on these, is to keep an eye on a mix between the talk and the walk. By that, what I mean is that sometimes a lot of initiatives that get done are meaningful only for a short term and they are good for signaling from the outside world, but they may not make a very meaningful difference in the life of diverse candidates. And here I'm speaking specifically perhaps from a gender diversity perspective. So a balanced mix of what we are doing to signal and attract employees, as well as what we are doing to really meaningfully change the experience of employees that are already there, right? If we sort of set up measures which will account for these sort of a mix and balance of these things, I think we probably make sure that we're on the right track, of course, with the C-suite being involved and course correction happening if necessary. One other thing that I would add to it is that there is a wealth of data that organizations, especially large organizations, have already about where structural issues may lie in terms of whether there is adequate representation at various levels of diversity candidates, or is it in a particular function, in a particular geography, or at a particular grade. Are people moving across or getting promoted at the same pace in different, regardless of their gender? Are the responsibilities being given in equal or equitable manner regardless of gender? All of these are things that I think there's a lot of data that organizations have already, which can be a starting point to setting up measurement of these things. And these are mostly medium and long-term things, but having a sense of where one is currently will really make sure that in the long term we do sort of arrive closer to where our aspiration is. That's what I think on measurement metrics.
Thank you. So willingness is good. Data is also key to be able to perform. Come back to AI and to all the data world. Regarding the future, if you have to project yourself in the coming months and years, what would be the key action or the force multiplier that would help us to go even faster? Priya.
So, Zoe, I am going to refer to many of the things that Rajesh also said, Uzma also said, Anupama has said also. When you look at the future, one of the things that I do want to talk about is let's understand that culture, there is nothing good or bad about the culture. There is, if the culture works for you, it's functional, then it's good. And then you can make towards making it nicer. So what it means is there will be all sorts of different cultural people will be coming at your workplace. There has to be a shared vision where they have a clarity of thought on what is being functional. And if they don't know what is being functional, then they are on their own assumptions really at the workplace. And I'll give you an example. Very recently, a male colleague of mine has come to us and he has basically said, hey, look, I need a 6 months of sabbatical. And I said, why? And the person said, it's because I've given a birth to a baby. And it's of course it's his wife has given a birth to a baby, and it is in India, and the person comes and I want a 6 month sabbatical, and the manager of that person raises the eyes and says, why do you need a sabbatical then when your wife has given a birth to a baby? Because she gets 6 months and I need to help her out, and I don't want us not to be together into this. Now these are the very revolutionary thoughts today, but they are going to be very common in the 6 months and 1 year and 5 years down the line, even in India. Okay, people will go, and I mean the laws of the government will not change, but however, whatever it is, the company will change their way they look at their male colleagues or female colleagues or any gender or identified colleagues. Okay, what we have to understand is the creating the awareness is just a necessity to overcome these barriers. We have to stop showing the same CBTs year over year and not change them for the future is just going to be necessary for us to understand what really diversity really means. Diversity doesn't mean including women at the workplace or physically disabled people at the workplace. It is also being an inclusive workplace to be able to understand that everybody has their need and they're here to create effectiveness for the company. And that means we have to be inclusive. So the definition of inclusivity is going to change. And that is why I really strongly feel that we should be changing the goals that we have on diversity and inclusion. We should not be saying diversity and inclusion ratio should be 50%. Instead of that, talk about equity. Talk about that equity of the gender has to be this much. Racial equity should be this much. And that is because you see a value, not because it looks good on the paper. It because you see there is an effectiveness. And that's why I like Anupama saying this, and Uzma also, that we have to understand whether it is working or not working, whether it is being functional or not functional. Otherwise, you will get a diversity and inclusion awards, but it will still not make your people happy. So I really feel that that's what the practical way to look at the future is. What will work with us and our company and our nature of the work that we have? Because at the end of the day, we all contribute to the profitability of the company. So then we have a share on that profitability in terms of inclusive work culture. So I'll just say that much, Zoe, I hope I've addressed that question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. And Anu, in your opinion, what would you change?
I'd like to add like a different lens to this now. Just combining all the thoughts that we have said so far. The pandemic has really added another angle to how we look at this for the future, right? So, I mean, we obviously see that the future is going to have a diverse workforce that's going to be located remotely, and remotely not in the country, somewhere in the world. Through the pandemic, we've seen a lot of companies that allow people to work remotely in the country and outside the country for a set number of days. Like some companies have policies where they let people work for 30 days outside the country and things like that. But some companies are starting to employ people that are based outside of their own countries. I mean, that's starting to happen. In 5-10 years, it could be that you could be truly a globetrotter, be based anywhere in the world, but still work for a certain company in a certain country. With that, it brings in more complexity into the diversity equation, brings in more cultures, more ways of working, different time zones, right? If for a certain kind of work, it doesn't matter what time zone you work in, as long as the work gets done within a certain deadline. So those kind of circumstances would come into picture. So we will need to consider all of these when we think of diversity. So all of the thoughts that we have said, yes, absolutely. How does that change when we put the word remote into the equation, be it in country, outside the country? It's probably easier to engage people face to face when we're talking about diversity. It's easier to, try and get them to imbibe the diversity and inclusion culture. But how do we do it when it's so remote and so spread across the world? It's physically not possible to bring everyone together to one room to do it. So we need to think of innovative ways of managing this situation.
Very true.
Yeah, this is absolutely true, but it's also raised different questions, because with this remote way of working, with the fact that everybody can work anytime and with the time difference, then you come to the work-life balance issue, the work-life balance topic, and how do we articulate that? And because with cultural differences from one country or not, and also sometimes regulation in countries, so you are facing different alternative or other issues. So the question, I would say, you're absolutely right. But then we also have to think about our future as a company and as a workforce, because our people is our key assets. So how do we attract our future generation, Gen Z, Gen Y, with this cultural diversity, because we know it's a must now to have that, but also with this constraint of remote work-life balance, because this is a key asset they want to keep. So I will ask Shekhar about this insight.
Generally, if you were to see work-life balance, I think whatever you like, you do is what I call is work-life balance, rather than saying that at work you don't do anything which is personal. At personal side, I think you don't do anything which is related to work. And it has worked very, very well in the way I think you build organizations. So you're passionate about what you do, whatever you're doing. It can be a person who is level 1, level 3, level 6, level 10. And your mind is 100% occupied with what you do, with passion. I generally call that, so I will be a bit different in organizations in calling work life, but this is what for me is you balance your mind and you don't worry about work in life. And yes, you have to ensure that at the end of the day, the way you have satisfaction levels, you generally ask same satisfaction levels with yourself, in the family and in the workforce. And if they all seem to be homogeneous, aligned, then you say that probably that work-life balance works. The traditional method of work-life balance is I'll work for 9 hours and I think I will rest for 9 hours, and I'll require, I think in the new tech world, you will face challenges in balancing those parts. While watching a movie, you may have to reply to attend a particular thing, which may take 10 seconds of yours. Fair enough. While be at work, I think you'll have to attend something at home. I think it may be required. So I think be passionate and love what you do is what I call is work life, and I guess the effectiveness comes in from there. And what future organizations want from everyone is that we are able to manage your personal side well and or equally well to perform your professional duties.
Thank you. So everything about passion and motivation. This is absolutely right. I have a specific question for you, Shekhar. So may I ask you to share your observation on if consumers are even looking at how diverse the bank is when deciding with financial institution?
Definitely.
Do you think it's a factor that people and customers are taking into account? Yes.
It's a very, very big factor. I will say, Joe, that there is something called ESG, and diversity forms part of the entire environmental social fabric, I think, which is being spoken about. And in my mind, whether it is an investor, I think the ESG quotient is very, very high. So there are dedicated funds which will invest only if you are ESG compliant organization. There are customers, I think, over a period who would want to see your green, your the entire ESG quotient, I think, which you have to be associated with you. And for now, and I think more in future, you will have a direct linkage of ESG to the profitability and the products we can offer. Please do remember that it is not limited to green. It is not limited to diversity. It is not limited to. It is. I think it involves. It is all inclusive in terms of culture, social impact, the initiatives which you take, and I have realized, I think, in various interactions, especially over last 18 odd months, where most of the big customers do ask for, or do, I think, and want to understand the initiatives on each of these sides.
This is very interesting. So it's not only internally, but externally and communication as well. Absolutely. I would like to finish this session with a quick round-robin questions for you. So I would ask Priya, what is your favorite app and which app would you recommend to your friends? I understood you're very technology oriented.
What is my favorite app and which one I will be telling to my friends? Frankly speaking, that's a very, very difficult question. Frankly, I do not have any favorite app, but I love people and I love reality checks. So I love apps also. I think they are enablers, but I am not at the mercy of them at all. So I will basically say I do keep a tab on social media a lot, but I don't get driven by that. And my 2 cents to this audience will be: let not our experience be our biggest enemy, and let not the social media tell you what and how to think about the future. So there has to be a balance between both of them. So I will dodge the question successfully and say this as my 2 cents in wrapping up. Zoe.
Okay, thank you. Uzma, I have a question for you. If you had any superpower for the day, what would it be?
If I could have, sorry, I couldn't catch that.
Yes, if you had any superpower for the day.
Superpower for the day. It's an interesting question.
Okay.
I can come back to you in a minute.
You can't ask that question.
So good. So Balaji, do you have an answer for this one?
If I have a superpower, basically mind reading.
Oh, good.
Okay, so I thought of something now that Balaji spoke. I think going back in time, I think would be what I would choose. There are parts of the past that are not accessible to me anymore in terms of people, in terms of places, etc. I would love to be able to revisit those memories and cherish them a little bit more.
Thank you. Thank you. Shekhar, one for you. Share a detail about yourself that we could not find on your LinkedIn page.
Many of them. So, but I can tell you, and as I see, I think as I come from a city, brought up in a city called Udaipur, which is called City of Lakes in Rajasthan, a beautiful state, and have worked all my life in big cities. But I can tell you that the city would have brought in a significant amount of things, I think, which you do now. So whether it is nature, diversity, it is to do with the way the soil is not able to produce enough. And I think, how do you ensure that you are inclusive in nature and still helpful to make an impact for the society? Because what you have is a lot many compared to what you don't have. And if you can actually bring that out and showcase to the world, you can actually do a very, very good part of the humanity. I was part of the cleanliness drive at City of Udaipur, where as a student, I took that initiative along with 10 other professionals. And over a period, I think we gave our suggestions, good amount of homework. the city of Udaipur went on to become the best city in the world 10 years later. The good part was the then collector, or I think called all those 11 people to thank, especially that you are the ones I think who did the entire project, made it happen, and see your city is something I think we almost had forgotten. I think we had done our work, submitted, somebody worked on it, but this is something I think you won't find on LinkedIn, but which gives you a lot of satisfaction that you were part of a community, a drive which made a city one of the best places in the world. And tourism has picked up later on, but I think you did the entire homework to really make it good. And many times, many employees do the similar work for organizations, which we probably notice it over a period, whether it is on work, inclusivity, lot many products, lot many initiatives, few policies, and I think special acknowledgement to each one of them, the way they are able to contribute, and each one of them become very, very important. As I was a small guy, a small student, I think in the entire 11 people as well in the entire city, to really see, I think it flourish.
Very interesting. Everything we don't put on LinkedIn. Maybe we have to create a specific social media for that. Anu, may I ask you, what are the 2 key secrets you can share with us from your learning journey?
2 key secrets.
Or advices.
Yeah,
maybe you want to keep it secret.
It's not really a secret, but I mean, going back to what I probably started the conversation with today, be an example for what you want people to be. If you want people to follow a certain thing, a certain policy, a certain way of working, you show them how you do it by being that. I think that's definitely one I would definitely recommend. And of course, you're very busy with work. You want to be successful at work. You do a lot of things, but don't forget your time with your family. Like Uzma was mentioning earlier, she doesn't have access to certain people from the past. You don't want to be in that position when later you think that, oh, I should have spent more time with this person, or I should have made more memories with my children, or whatever. So make sure you give equal importance to your family as well as much importance as you give for your work life.
Thank you very much. One last very quick question for Rajesh, and before we close the call. So can you tell me, or tell us, sorry, about an object you own that not a lot of people have? You're on mute.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is there any object that you own and that you think not many people have? Something special?
Maybe the skill of being empathetic towards others.
Okay. This is not an object, this is a skill, but this is a good one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Zoe, before you go, we have a question for you probably.
Oh, okay.
Who is Zoe in this world of diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, this is a tough one.
You did not spare us. Besides the question, Zoe, we would like to hear from you also some passionate thoughts of yours on this subject. So don't worry about the question. Just
I'm very happy with all our discussion and all your insights, because I recover and I'm aligned with everything you said. Cultural diversity is something critical. It also depends on the maturity of the company, and this is what we have to raise and to work at, because sometimes we are at the awareness level and sometimes we are much more further in line with KPIs and clear progress. And but this is how to inspire and how to make sure we spend exactly what you said. Spend time, and Uzma, I think it's spend time and learn sometimes to slow down the rhythm we have in the work we are doing, to take the time to question ourselves: am I inclusive enough? Am I inclusive? And this is a way to work, to be as much as possible holistic in everything you do, to take the pair of glasses of your colleague, your peers, of your customer, but to say, okay, if I have another filter, what would I think? And this is important because this is how you develop the way of thinking and become more inclusive.
Well said, Zoe. Well said.
Thank you, everybody. It was a very interesting session. I was very happy to have you as a speaker and panelist, and I will hand over to Shita.
Thanks, Zoe. Yeah, that was indeed a great session. Some great insights and also different perspective on some of the aspects. I mean, something we've not thought about. And I think as D&I team, we've all made notes of some of these things, and I hope we can implement those. Thank you again, Shekhar, Uzma, Priya, Anupama, Rajesh, and Zoe, so for taking out the time for this session. And I know Zoe, Anupama, and even Balaji, it must be what, 7 or 8 in the morning for you all. Thank you for connecting so early. And I also must take a minute to thank Balaji and Prashant for giving us this platform to discuss such an important topic, and also for their constant support in building the D&I practice for us here in India. And last but not the least, a huge shout out to all the participants for your interest and your time. And before we close, it's a request to participants. So if you're passionate about being the change agent, and if you have any ideas for building the D&I practice for us, then Deepthi and I will be happy to welcome and hear your thoughts. So on that note, thank you everyone and have a great day. Bye.